draft for the 2022 United Nations Ocean Conference. My name is Lotta Tähtinen, and I'm the Chief of the Outreach and Partnerships Branch in the Division for Sustainable Development Goals of UN DESA. And I'm very honored to welcome you all to this online event, which is organized by us as the Secretariat of the 2022 UN Ocean Conference. Before we start, let me make a few brief housekeeping issues. Firstly, if my colleagues could switch the slide. Thank you. Please note that this webinar will be recorded. We will be making available the recording, presentation, and all relevant information on the event website, and we will also share it with all the registered participants. Secondly, we would be grateful if all speakers could please keep your cameras on while speaking, if at all possible. Thirdly, we kindly ask all participants to make sure that your microphones are muted when you are not speaking. And then finally, we encourage you to please use the chat box to ask any questions or share comments or suggestions. If using the chat box, please make sure to type also your name, organization, or country when typing in your question. So let me briefly run through today's agenda, which is reflected on the screen. We will be starting with some welcoming remarks, opening remarks by the co-facilitators for the intergovernmental consultations of the 2022 UN Ocean Conference. After that, we will be hearing interventions from stakeholders across different sectors and regions who will be making concrete inputs to the zero draft document. As you can see, we have quite a tight agenda today, and we will be very grateful if any interventions could please be delivered within the preset time as indicated on the schedule. Dear colleagues, before I have the honor of introducing our distinguished co-facilitators, let me offer a quick review of the 2022 UN Ocean Conference. The conference, which will be held under the overarching theme of scaling up ocean action based on science, innovation for the implementation of Goal 14, stocktaking, partnerships and solutions, will be co-hosted by Portugal and Kenya and held in Lisbon, Portugal from 27 June to 1 July 2022. The official program of the conference, which is available on the conference website, will feature a mix of plenary sessions as well as 8 thematic interactive dialogues whose themes have been decided by member states. In addition to these formal meetings, there will also be various special events and side events held on the margins of the conference. To find out the most up-to-date information about the conference, please visit the official website, and my colleagues will be posting it in the chat box during this presentation. As has been decided by the General Assembly, the outcome of the conference should be a brief, concise, action-oriented and intergovernmentally agreed declaration. The focus of today's meeting will be to hear stakeholders' views on this zero draft of the declaration that has been circulated. I'm pleased to inform you that in addition to today's conversation, we will be hosting shortly a general online briefing to stakeholders about the Ocean Conference, where we will be sharing more detailed information about the conference, how to participate, as well as responding to any specific questions that stakeholders may have. We will be circulating details about this general briefing a bit later in the next coming days. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to inform you that we had, as UNDESA, conducted a global online stakeholder consultation to seek stakeholders' views and inputs to the concept papers of the 8 interactive dialogues. The results of these online consultations are now available, and a summary report has been posted. My colleagues will be sharing a link to the summary report in the chat box. I would like to take this opportunity to very much thank all of you who contributed to these consultations. Now, without further ado, I have the great pleasure to introduce the 2 co-facilitators that have been appointed by the President of the General Assembly to lead the negotiations, the permanent representatives of Grenada and Denmark, who on the 14th of February this year circulated a revised zero draft of the political declaration to all member states. This declaration is also made available on the conference website. So now, without further ado, please let me welcome our first speaker, Her Excellency Ambassador Keisha McGuire, who's the permanent representative of Grenada to the United Nations, to make some opening remarks. Excellency, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. Well, first of all, we'd like to thank all participants that are joining this call today from all over the world. So it's not only morning, so good afternoon, good evening. We're very, very happy to be here, and we very much was looking forward to this engagement. As you're aware, the 2022 UN Ocean Conference to support the implementation of Goal 14 will be held in Lisbon from the June 27th to July 1st. The overarching theme of the conference, as you all may be aware, and as mentioned by the moderator, is scaling up ocean action based on science and innovation for the implementation of Goal 14, stock-taking, partnerships, and solutions. The 2022 UN Ocean Conference is expected to involve all relevant stakeholders, bringing together governments, the UN system, intergovernmental organizations, IFIs, that's the International Financial Institutions, other interested international bodies, NGOs, civil society organizations, academic institutions, the scientific community, the private sector, philanthropic organizations, and other actors to collectively present concrete proposals to scale up implementation of SDG 14. One of the outcomes of the conference will be an intergovernmentally agreed political declaration. The President of the General Assembly has appointed Ambassador Martin Billy Herrmann and myself to facilitate these negotiations for a brief, concise, and action-oriented political declaration, which will primarily focus on support for the implementation of Goal 14 through science-based and innovative areas of action. I will now pass the floor to my fellow co-facilitator, Ambassador Herrmann. You have the floor, Martin.
Well, thanks, Keisha, and colleagues around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Great to meet you again. I think it's almost sort of more than 2 years since we last did, and I really hope to meet Keisha and myself. Hope to meet a lot of you in Lisbon. No, the conference will not be the same without active engagement of let's say non-state stakeholders in this. But allow me to say just sort of a few words about the process for the political declaration. Now, as you are of course fully aware, otherwise you wouldn't be here today, the negotiations on the political declaration begun back in January 2020, but were subsequently put on hold due to the postponement of the conference. Now, as we resume consultations on the declaration, we believe it's important to recognize, but also take into consideration the valuable input that member states provided in the first rounds of the consultation into winter and the spring of 2020. And we've therefore taken sort of outset in the draft declaration that was circulated on 28th of April in 2020. No, At the same time, we sort of fully recognize that almost 2 years have passed, no, since member states last met to discuss the political declaration, and that there are, of course, several aspects of the draft that are in need of updating, and that there may be new elements that need to be added. So we held a meeting with member states on 1st of February, where we received a lot of constructive suggestions on how to update the text, and this resulted in a sort of in a second serial draft, if you like, that was then circulated on 14th of February. And now what we really need from you is to hear your views on the current draft, your inputs and your ideas on how we can improve the text. We're not doing this for show. We really need your help, and we really need your guidance. We are also at a later stage going to ask for your understanding that this is also the art of compromise. But for now, we need you to pardon the expression, fire away, give us good ideas, suggestions on how to improve the draft. And I'll stop there and say thank you.
Ambassadors, thank you so much for those remarks and setting the stage for today's interactive dialogue. Let me now pass the floor to my colleague, Nayara Costa, who's a Senior Sustainable Development Officer in our division, and who will moderate this interactive discussion. Nayara, over to you now.
Thank you so very much, Lotta, and good morning, good afternoon. Many thanks also to our excellencies, the ambassadors, for convening this session with us. Colleagues, as we mentioned, this is actually the third briefing that we are conducting, focusing on the political declaration. So there is a history of inputs being shared by stakeholders. When you register to attend this webinar, we asked, you identified your interest in providing some inputs. We have a list of colleagues that we will be inviting to make those interventions. We ask you to please remain in the limit of 2 minutes. We will be then sharing the written statements with the co-facilitators, but we will try to accommodate as many colleagues as we can. If you have inputs, please also, you can use the chat box. We will be compiling those as well. And please, when you are taking the floor, focus, as the ambassadors have been flagging, focus on specific aspects of the political declaration and your concrete messages, suggestions, and proposals. If we have time, we will still try to accommodate more interventions, but I will be going through our list. So just 1 second. Let me start by inviting Mr. Kalim Shah from the Universities Consortium of Small Island States. Mr. Shah, you have the floor, please. 2 minutes.
Good day, everyone, colleagues, esteemed ministers of government and other high-level representatives. Today, I'm Kalim Shah. I coordinate the Universities Consortium of Small Island States. I'm also a professor of energy and environmental policy at the Biden School, University of Delaware in the United States. So today I want to focus on 4 points in the political statement. The consortium fully reiterates its commitment to the political statement's position on SDG 14, with particular emphasis on science and innovation, stock-taking, partnerships and solutions, with the participation of civil society. With respect to point 11 of the statement, which duly recognizes a series of high priority areas for intervention, including integrated ocean management, fish stocks, marine pollution, plastics, area-based management tools, and so on, we would add 2 points here. So while we concur with these priorities, I would like to draw attention to the need to understand each of these as short, medium, and long-term interventions. The interventions required in the science and technology and innovation realm may vary between the needs of the urgency of the short term, the medium term, and then sort of the The key to it would be sustained long-term action. So while we work on these points, it cannot be mere short-term or looking for solutions in the long term. It has to be across the time spectrum. The second point is on point, second observation on point 11. Some of the interventions here are described in a very reactionary nature. We believe that while we need to react strongly to many of these urgent challenges, we have to position ourselves through the use of science, technology, and innovation in a more proactionary nature or proactive nature as well.
Mr. Shah, can you start wrapping up, please?
Thank you. On point 7, we find that this is very pivotal. We believe that the political statement can do some more work on linking these areas of intervention with the blue economy and with community economic development. The political statement perhaps does not go far enough in linking science to the economy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shah. I'll need to invite our next speaker. We will have your full intervention later to share. May I invite Ms. Maria Adelaide Defejeda, please?
Hello, everyone. Great to be here with you all. Mare is very grateful for the opportunity to offer concrete suggestions to this zero draft. We suggest that the United Nations Decade of Action for the SDGs should be explicitly mentioned, either at the end of paragraph 3 or of paragraph 4, stating, "We also recognize the importance of the United Nations Decade of Action to deliver the SDGs and its call to support and scale up global, local, and individual efforts and ambitious action to deliver the SDGs by 2030. In the penultimate line of paragraph 7, instead of "Build Back Better," as a proactive and forward-looking statement, we suggest "Build Forward Better." In paragraph 11a, climate change should be explicitly mentioned. We suggest integrated climate-smart ocean management in line 1 and adding "in a context of climate change" at the end of the paragraph. In paragraph 11e, and in line with paragraph 6, add "and other effective area-based conservation measures" in line 2 after marine protected areas. In paragraph 12e, after social science, add "and incorporate both in planning, decision-making, and implementation." Lastly, we believe that paragraph 12g should be more ambitious. In line 1, add "ensure that all people" or "ensure that society," and add "and decision makers" after children and youth. In the last line, include training, education, training, and lifelong learning, and a stronger statement on ocean literacy to end the paragraph, adding "to prompt urgent behavior changes and transformative actions for ocean sustainability." Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so very much, Maria Adelaide from the Marine and Environmental Sciences Center. May I now invite Mr. Philip Xu from Oceana. The floor is yours.
Hello, Your Excellencies and esteemed colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input into the Zero Draft. On behalf of Oceana, the largest international advocacy organization solely dedicated to ocean conservation, and also as a steering committee member of a global coalition combating illegal fishing, including the WWF Network, Global Fishing Watch, Environmental Justice Foundation, Seafood Legacy Japan, CIES, Citizens Institute for Environmental Services, South Korea, and PRCM, the Regional Partnership for Coastal and Marine Conservation in West Africa, we would like to recognize the importance of improving transparency in marine fisheries governance in order to achieve scaling up ocean action based on science innovation, our 2022 UN Ocean Conference theme. And strongly recommend transparency in marine governance be included in the political declaration under Section 12 and wherever applicable. Seafood is the world's largest globally traded commodity and the last food that humans still hunt on a global scale. Yet so much about it remains in the dark. Who is catching what, when, where, when? But its very information is what we need to make science-based decisions about our fisheries, to ensure our protected areas remain protected, to rein in rampant illegal fishing that is estimated to constitute 1/4 of all marine catch. Improved fisheries transparency benefits those that rely on fish the most for their livelihoods, for their food security and health. Artisanal and small-scale fishers often bear the brunt of impact from illegal fishing activities. A new study being published today, actually at 2 p.m. Eastern today in Science Advances, reveals at least 1/3 of all recorded offenses are associated with just 20 companies and 450 industrial fishing vessels. Small-scale fishers, who are often more visible to law enforcement due to their proximity to the coast, are disproportionately criminalized for fishing crimes, while industrial fishers are frequently let off the hook, says lead author Dr. Belhabib.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Oh, okay.
Global fisheries can provide up to 1 billion healthy seafood meals per day. However, without improved transparency, this cannot happen. Global transparency policies can underpin effective governance, whether it's the use of technology to gather detailed data on catches or leveraging open data to drive government toward more sustainable practices. Indeed, a fundamental shift toward transparency in fisheries governance is critical to the future of our oceans. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Shaw. I will invite now Ms. Viviana Solis Rivera from CUP Solidar and the Women's Major Group, and she will be followed by Mr. Todela. Just Mr. Todela, be ready. Viviane, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for opening a space to hear our voices. We feel the draft declaration should be strengthened in relation to the following issues. Recognize the contribution of fisher folks and their organizations, especially the small-scale artisanal fisher sector, as right holders and custodians of their marine territories of life. As primary supporters of the planet's marine conservation goals and the need for their participation in dialogues between conservation and production, recognizing the importance of the sustainable use of marine resources for food security. To clearly state the situation of artisanal small-scale fishing communities around the world, and especially fisherwomen working along the diverse fishing value chains, and the need to generate public policies and interinstitutional actions that allow the full enjoyment of their rights, especially land tenure, access to the sea, access to health, access to education, decent work, governance, and fair market. To consider, within the framework of a transformative science, such as the one called by the Decade of the Oceans, the promotion and incorporation of traditional knowledge into initiatives that generate information for fisheries management and conservation as a fundamental input for decision-making and action. To mention the urgent need to ensure that all marine conservation efforts are implemented under a human rights-based approach and recognizing the different types of governance, especially those led by local and indigenous communities and shared governance. All new marine protected areas established by governments need to respect IPLC-free previous and informed consent. State the need for the implementation of the voluntary guidelines for small-scale fishing in the context of food security and poverty eradication as an instrument that builds solid bridges for the conservation of marine diversity and sustainable use of resources under a human rights-based approach, and especially during this 2022, which is the International Year of Small-Scale Fisheries and Aquaculture, that should provide hope for the fishing youth that should carry on this wonderful way of life near our coast, islands, and oceans. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Viviane, for the statement. I'll be inviting now Mr. Sergi Todela. He's speaking on behalf of Regions 4, Local Authorities Major Group, and the Global Task Force. And next, I'll be inviting Ms. Ruby Lang. Mr. Todela, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I'm Sergi Todela. I'm the Director General for Maritime Policy and Sustainable Fisheries with the Government of Catalonia, and I'm making this intervention on behalf of the Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments. So, dear Chair, Excellencies, local and regional governments throughout the world gather in the network of the Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments, welcome and align with the Zero Draft Declaration, and would like, given the latest report of the IPCC, to stress further within the declaration the urgency to act to respond and adapt to climate change, notably given the confirmed risk of entering zones of no return. In view of the next generation of multilateralism, we welcome the mention of the importance to enhance cooperation at the global, regional, and national level, as well as subnational and local level. In this regard, we welcome the organization of a local and regional governments special event at the UN Oceans Conference. In our view, one of the biggest challenges in implementing SDG 14 is governance. In this sense, we call for the declaration to be more explicit about the need for Paris to build upon the know-how and expertise of local and regional governments in building sustainable management models to respond to aggravated risks due to ocean and sea degradation. Considering their proximity to citizens, local and subnational governments have developed integrated solutions and governance models based on co-management that can be scaled up and influence, for example, integrated maritime policy. And this fact should be reflected within the declaration. So we advocate to explicitly mentioning co-management as a successful participatory governance model for the ocean. We remain committed to support the protection of our oceans, and we'll be present at the Oceans Conference to capitalize on our experience in order to provide knowledge and to contribute delivering on ocean actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Todela, for your remarks. Let me invite now Ruby Lang from the Children and Youth Major Group, followed by Stephan Sindicera. Ruby, can we hear you
Hi.
now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you all for this space to share our reflections. My name is Ruby Lang, and I'll be speaking on behalf of the Major Group of Children and Youth. We'd like to share some reflections on areas we feel need to be strengthened. First, we want to emphasize that youth around the world are imperative to the solutions and need to be included. Given the critical role that young people have in the conservation and sustainable use of the oceans, we need young people at the forefront of these issues. In addition, we want to express the importance of including the most vulnerable youth group, young women young women and girls. It is imperative that young women and girls are empowered with relevant knowledge and skills that enable them to be at the table for these conversations. And we agree with the verbiage of promoting and supporting quality education and lifelong learning of literacy, because this allows young women and girls to be a part of the solutions too. Overall, we want to emphasize that young people need more platforms to showcase their ideas, recommendations, innovations, and youth-led solutions for actions to save our ocean and protect our future. Second, we really want to stress that ocean solutions need to include science-based and innovative actions, but must be alongside traditional and local knowledge. We need to pair the two to truly tackle these issues. We would like to recognize that the important role of traditional and local knowledge, innovation, and practices that are held by Indigenous people and local communities, as well as the role of social science in planning and decision-making and implementation. These are the key to solving these issues. And if we do not create space for traditional and local knowledge to be included in the solutions, we only leave holes for more problems in the future. And finally, we'd like to emphasize that it's clear that the ocean is fundamental to life on our planet, but also to our future. The ocean is an important source of the planet's biodiversity and plays a vital role in climate system and water cycle. We need to emphasize that scaling up ocean action must be done without scaling up ocean use. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Ruby, for this intervention, and to all colleagues for keeping the time. This is excellent. So now I will be inviting Mr. Severin Sindicera from the Indigenous Peoples Global Forum for Sustainable Development, and then followed by Mr. Zianiski. So, Mr. Sindicera, please, you have the floor.
Thank you so much for being invited in this briefing. My contribution are focused on the following paragraph. The first insight is on the first point on 11 paragraph C. The second point on 12 paragraph point E and F. According to the first point of my insight on to 11 paragraph C, because of the dire situation of marine litter and plastic pollution in the ocean and lakes that is increasing exponentially and reduced to the big issue for humankind and indigenous people, it's important to think about the way out that is not limited only on the measures highlighted in this paragraph. I propose to show the concrete actions of the company actors of accessing to the technologies transfer limiting the chemical product in the productions sold on the market. The following point, it's very important to promote the activity of recycling the waste plastic picked up in the ocean and likes to minimize negative impacts that can harm the lives of the population, including those of indigenous people. In this point, you cannot prevent controlling marine pollution without conducting the raising awareness for indigenous people and all population on how they contribute to not polluting the ocean with plastic after using consumption products. And on the following point of my contribution on 12 paragraph E, on the stressed role of recognized traditional knowledge of indigenous people who better contribute to the management of marine, I underline this traditional knowledge of indigenous people can be also shared at the broad range of the different actors to be applied for healthy and sustainable ocean management, not only for being useful for others, but also it's essential that indigenous people leverage of their knowledge for improving their living condition and the value system based on the food security taken in the ocean and the lakes. Finally, pursuant to the same paragraph, on each point, I suggest empowering indigenous people at the same stage of equal of women and girls because all these categories are vulnerable in the frame of improving the economy given from the clean and healthy ocean based on ecosystem. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Sindicera. So now let me invite Mr. Tymon Zianiski from the Institute of Oceanology Polish and the Polish Academy of Sciences. And then the next will be Ms. Christine Xu. Mr. Zianiski, please, you have the floor.
I would like to stress the crucial role of increasing climate and ocean change awareness among young citizens. I am convinced that we must make every effort to empower them with knowledge, to allow them to critically choose the sources of information regarding observed changes, as well as to decide what they can do to mitigate the changes and adapt to them. Young generations need to understand the principles of sustainable development and how to adopt the idea into their own lives. To achieve this, it is crucial to develop innovative educational tools and mechanisms and to implement them in all schools in every country. We need to take an interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approach to tackle these changes. Students must understand how complex the issues of global climate and ocean changes are, and that every person, including them, has a profound impact on the fate of our planet. We must invest in youth climate and ocean education because teenage citizens within a few years will make crucial decisions in parliamentary elections that are likely to determine the planet's future. Properly educated citizens are key to achieving global sustainability. And therefore, I would suggest to modify the following line in point 12G of the declaration, which at the moment states through promoting and supporting quality education and lifelong learning of ocean literacy, to the line that goes through promoting and supporting quality education of lifelong learning for ocean literacy, including obligatory courses in all schools in every country. And that would be my contribution, and thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Zianiski. May I invite Ms. Christine Xu and then followed by Mr. Felipe Victoria. So Christine Xu from the Aquatic Life Institute.
Thank you, everyone. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am speaking on behalf of the Aquatic Life Institute to provide our input. In hopes of achieving a healthy, safe, and resilient ocean for sustainable development by 2030 and beyond, we would like to add a new point to the declaration that is intersectional and cross-cutting, which is recognizing the importance of aquatic animals as key stakeholders in our ocean conservation efforts. That is, treating aquatic animals as sentient beings who are capable of suffering and not just as stocks to be exploited for food. Ocean conservation via a welfare lens will introduce humane capture fisheries and fish farming that can help reduce overfishing, bycatch, injury, and ultimately unnecessary mortality. Captured fisheries is the last major food production system that does not take animal welfare into account. To truly be responsible in our efforts to protect the oceans, we must include aquatic animals as a central focal point in this declaration. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Xu. Now, may I invite Mr. Felipe Victoria from Ocean Conservancy, and then the next one will be Ms. Sheila Heymans. Felipe?
Thank you, Chair, esteemed excellencies, esteemed colleagues. Ocean Conservancy would like to extend its gratitude and congratulations to the co-facilitators for the work steering this process. We consider that the current draft reflects well many of the challenges facing the ocean. However, we continue to be concerned by the lack of specific mention to some of the most pressing priorities to improve and protect the health of our oceans. As the science is clear on this, in paragraph 5, we recommend acknowledging in the text the compounding nature of climate change impacts, include references to climate change predictions, and in paragraph 11b, referencing the importance of adaptive management to restore and protect fish stocks and habitats. We also recommend an emphasis in the text for ocean-based mitigation and adaptation solutions to climate change, as it can contribute significantly to advance several SDGs, including, of course, SDG 14. We met with satisfaction the outcome of UNEA 5.2 regarding the action against plastics. To encourage all stakeholders to maintain the same level of ambition, we believe paragraph 11C should include a specific reference to plastic, including from sea-based sources. In paragraph 11D, we support introducing a reference to the production of marine plastic litter, eliminating subsidies to produce plastic, including extraction of source material, and we welcome other language referencing UNEA 5.2 and the International Instrument on Plastics. We support including specific mention in the text of lost, abandoned, or discarded fishing gear known as ghost gear, which is the most harmful type of marine debris in our ocean, as well as language referencing the implementation of internationally recognized best practices for the management of fishing gear. We reaffirm our support for the maritime sector emissions reductions, and we recommend including paragraph 11F, a reference aligning the goals and targets of the IMO to achieve zero carbon shipping by 2050, and a commitment for technology transfer and workforce training to increase the use of ocean-based renewable energy and a ban on heavy fuel oil use in the Arctic. To conclude, we would like to highlight the need for active consideration of ocean justice, including in plastics and climate solutions, and the need for indigenous peoples' engagement in ocean management. Thank you for the opportunity to provide inputs today, and Ocean Conservancy looks forward to supporting a successful and informative UN Ocean Conference. Back to you, Nayara.
Thank you so very much, Felipe. Now let me invite Ms. Sheila Heymans from the European Marine Board. Sheila, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. The European Marine Board would like to thank the governments of Kenya and Portugal for co-hosting the 2022 UN conference, and the representatives of Denmark and Grenada for their leadership in drafting this very important political declaration. But to scale up our ocean action based on stock-taking partnerships and solutions, we really need to ensure that all the possible human impacts and all possible benefits that humans might obtain from the ocean are accounted for. We must also ensure that it includes transdisciplinarity of ocean science in the document. So specifically, the European Marine Board therefore suggests that we include the physical and mental health benefits of the ocean in point 3, as is highlighted in the European Marine Board Policy Brief number 8 on oceans and human health. The inclusion of ocean deoxygenation and anoxia as an important threat in point 4. The inclusion of the impact of cumulative human activities on the ocean and on the socioeconomics of local coastal communities in point 11A, the inclusion of marine geological events to ocean-related extreme events in point 11F, as is highlighted in the Marine Board position paper number 26 on the hidden threats of marine geohazards, the inclusion of transdisciplinary science, both needed and being committed to in point 12C, as is highlighted in the European Commission's International Ocean Governance Forum report. And finally, not just recognizing the role of traditional and local knowledge in point 12F, but also taking it into account. And with that, we'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Sheila. So colleagues, those were the colleagues that have registered their interest and that we were managed to invite to speak. But we still have some time available. So let me invite, and we'll do this thing. If there is anything that was not mentioned and you think it would be important still to flag in the resolution, please do raise your hands. Please, really something that was not mentioned, and you will have 1 minute, so we will try to accommodate as many speakers as we can. And if we cannot, please use the chat box so you can also make sure that those inputs are captured. So let me start with Stephan, John, Hopstein. I will be following the order that is showing here in my Teams. Stephan, you have 1 minute, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'm speaking on behalf of the Aquatic Blue Food Coalition, which was launched at the UN Food Systems Summit last year. We are a coalition of 30 international actors, including 20 member states. And we have a proposal for addition to the political declaration. In paragraph 11, we would like to add mobilizing actions for sustainable fisheries and aquaculture to deliver sufficient, safe, and nutritious food, recognizing SDG 14 as vital for sustainable food systems and for achieving SDG 2 by 2030, while supporting a healthy ocean, marine ecosystems, and a vibrant ocean-based economy. We believe it's fundamental that the political declaration recognizes the importance of blue and aquatic food. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you so very much for that. And let me invite Mr. Brent Greenfield. Let me just allow your camera. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm speaking on behalf of the National Ocean Policy Coalition, and we offer the following comments on the Zero Draft Political Declaration. First, recognizing the important role of the private sector in ocean conservation and sustainable use, we recommend adding a new paragraph 11G, which states, quote, leveraging the private sector's development and application of innovative technologies and best practices, many of which are already providing climate mitigation and adaptation solutions while supporting activities that generate jobs, economic growth, and quality of life, including through the conversion of ocean infrastructure to artificial reefs. In paragraph 12A, first sentence, following the phrase investing in national statistical systems, We also recommend adding the phrase, quote, coordinating with the private sector to leverage existing, ongoing, and future data collection efforts. Recognizing the role of the ocean in supporting the blue economy and socioeconomic well-being, in paragraph 11E, immediately after social and cultural value, we recommend adding, quote, and socioeconomic costs and benefits, close quote. And also immediately following paragraph 12C, we recommend adding a new paragraph stating, explore, develop, and promote opportunities to better realize the full socioeconomic potential of the blue economy at a time when nations around the world are confronted with rising prices and supply constraints that inhibit jobs, economic growth, and quality of life, and exacerbate poverty. Lastly, recognizing the negative effects of PPE disposal in the ocean, in paragraph 7, first sentence, we request adding the word improper directly in front of disposal of personal protective equipment. In 11D, first sentence, we recommend adding improper disposal of directly in front of personal protective equipment. And in the same sentence, given recent studies concluding that biodegradable plastics is not an effective solution for marine litter, we support deleting the phrase starting with developing new materials, ending with marine plastic litter. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Greenfield. I have here an NGO Coare, Christopher. It's Christopher Chin. You have 1 minute, please.
Greetings, excellencies and colleagues. I'm honored to offer this intervention on behalf of the Center for International Environmental Law, Environmental Investigation Agency, the Center for Oceanic Awareness, Research and Education, Ocean Care, and the Global Break Free from Plastic Movement. We'd like to offer some enhancements to this draft statement, especially given the overwhelming support for and momentum behind the recently adopted negotiating mandate for a legally binding instrument to end plastic pollution. The UNEA resolution calls to end plastic pollution, including in marine and other environments, and it notes that it's of a transboundary nature and needs to be tackled together with its impacts through a full life cycle approach. We therefore request that the reference to life cycle approaches in this declaration refer not only to comprehensive approaches, but to full life cycle approaches, specifically from plastic production through to design and use of the environmentally sound waste management. Paragraph 11D also refers to biodegradation, which is a term so often misused and misleading that some jurisdictions prohibit its use in labeling for consumer goods. Instead, we suggest language consistent with UNEA's resolution to promote true circularity of materials and resource efficiency. Lastly, the political declaration aims to reduce to zero additional marine plastic litter, which we do not feel adequately reflects the ambition required for the crisis at hand. Plastic pollution leakage into aquatic ecosystems has grown sharply and is projected to more than double by 2030. We would like this opportunity now to build on the terrific momentum of UNEA 5 and set our ambitions high. And I don't want to take up more than a minute. The rest of our will be in written.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Chin. I think we are colleagues. I will invite. We need to balance the gender, and I will invite that I have 3 colleagues that are showing to me. Really 1 minute focused on colleagues who have spoken. If you could also post your comments on the chat so we can capture it properly. It's been very quick. So Alice Tippin, let me just allow your, yeah, you can go now.
Yes, thank you very much indeed for the opportunity to provide some input to this declaration, and thank you, ambassadors, for your time. Many of you will be aware that negotiations on a binding multilateral agreement on subsidies to fishing is due to be concluded at the World Trade Organization in Geneva in June this year. That's just before the Ocean Conference. And successful conclusion of these negotiations would represent the achievement in large measure of SDG target 14.6. So in that light, we'd like to suggest an additional paragraph, perhaps between current paragraph 10 and current paragraph 11, somewhere along the following lines, open quote, welcoming the outcomes of the 12th WTO Ministerial Conference and the conclusion of negotiations of the Fisheries Subsidies Agreement. We commit to the effective implementation of the new agreement, recognizing the importance of technical assistance and capacity building for developed and least developed countries in their efforts to achieve SDG target 14.6. I'll put the language in the chat now. Thank you for the time.
Thank you so very much. Carly Kelso, I think, looks like can you
Hello, Your Excellency,
yes.
and esteemed colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity today. On behalf of Environmental Defense Fund, we applaud the draft's reference to the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture and inclusion of small-scale actors in decision-making, given their role as stewards of biodiverse ecosystems and significant contribution towards food security, nutrition, and livelihoods. We have two recommendations. In paragraph 12, we recommend the inclusion of language that commits to the sustainable management of small-scale fisheries through the timely implementation of the voluntary guidelines for securing sustainable small-scale fisheries in the context of food security and poverty eradication. And two, blue and aquatic foods are essential to human health, food security, biodiversity, livelihoods, and can help progress 9 of the SDGs. We need to put them front and center at decision-making for policy and budgetary priorities. We support the language proposed by Ambassador Stephan Hopstein of Iceland, which recommends a new section in paragraph 11, mobilizing actions for sustainable fisheries and aquaculture to deliver sufficient, safe, nutrition foods, recognizing SDG 14 as vital for sustainable food systems and for achieving SDG 2 by 2030, while supporting a healthy ocean, marine ecosystems, and a vibrant ocean-based economy. This will highlight more explicitly that fish is food. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kelso. I will be able to invite one last speaker because we really need to give it back to the co-facilitators. And colleagues, thanks so much for all the inputs through the chat box. So let me invite Ms. Linda Wong. Ms. Wong, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm Linda Wong on behalf of the China Biodiversity Conservation and Green Development Foundation. It is a China's leading NGO and biodiversity society. I would like to suggest that the text to add something that to promote the synergies between biodiversity conservation and climate change, because in particular in the development of wind farms in coastal areas, we need to ensure that biodiversity assessment has fully carried out, especially for those birds on the flyways. So that is very important. And we are currently in Geneva CBD meetings, and I would like to ask you to think about adding this into the text because I didn't see it previously. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Wong, and many thanks to all colleagues for attending, for your active contributions. I will turn back now to our excellencies, the co-facilitators, Ambassador Maguire, Ambassador Herrmann. Perhaps you would like to say a few words before we can close the call. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. And this is exactly what we wanted, the concrete proposals. We're very, very grateful for it. We hope that in addition to what has been posted in the chat, and we thank you for all the comments in the chat. I've personally been reading them for all the suggestions. We would also request that these inputs be given in writing forms, in written forms, so that we could duly consider them as we go forward in our intergovernmental negotiations and producing our further revised drafts. This has been very, very informative and very, very insightful. So we are much appreciative of this engagement. And as I said earlier, we are very much looking forward to it. And it really has been a fruitful engagement this morning. But over to you, Martin. Again, thank you very much, everyone.
No, thanks. Let me just add my voice to that of Keisha's in thanking all of you for excellent interventions, even better inputs that we are definitely going to be making use of. Really important to have your perspective on this and to have your ideas. As Keisha said, the more concrete and specific they are, the better. If you haven't already shared them in chat, please do send them to us. And then perhaps just the last encouragement from our side is one thing is, of course, to try to influence the co-facilitators. We are very much in the hands of member states. And I know all of you, of course, also have bases back home. So do talk also to your authorities, to those that negotiate on behalf of the country that you represent, because that's actually also one of the ways to influence where the political declaration ends. So, but once again, thank you so much for your contribution, for being here today, and for sharing your insights with us. It's really much appreciated.
Thank you so very much, Ambassadors Maguire and Herrmann, for opening up the space for really concrete and dedicated interventions and substantive interventions from the stakeholders. Colleagues, what we are going to do, we will be compiling the inputs that were put on the chat box. If your organization would like to send additional inputs in written, we will be able to accept those until Friday, because I know that co-facilitators will be hosting negotiations. So the sooner they receive your inputs, the better. My colleagues will be posting the email through which you can send. What we will ask, please be concise, ideally 1 page, 1.5 page, very concrete inputs. Put your name and the name of your organization, as this is helpful. We will be uploading those to the this events page. It will also go to the page or the conferences page. And then you will be able, as Ambassador Herrmann was reminding, you'll be able to use that also to do your advocacy with the different member states on the language that you are proposing, suggesting for the negotiation. So let me just see if colleagues have posted our email, the UNOC email. I'll just wait before we can close the call. Yes, perfect. So colleagues, do send those to us by Friday, the 25th, so we can properly compile and upload them, really concise, concrete. And yes, and thank you so very much, everyone, for joining. We will also be sending more information about the general briefing about the conference very soon. And yes, and thank you again, and see you soon. Thank you so very much, ambassadors, for this opportunity. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you.